Throughout the history of the NBA, there are players who completely changed the way the game is played. Their overwhelming ability lays a blueprint for other teams and players to copy so they can achieve a similar level of success. Players like Jordan, Curry, James pop into your minds because they have been game-changing talents. But one player who deserves to be in the same breath as those mentioned is DIRK NOWITZKI. Before he changed the game, before he was a 14-time All-Star and a 12-time All-NBA, before he was the MVP of the league, he was just another kid in Würzburg, Germany. Unlike his peers in the NBA, who picked up the game as children, Nowitzki picked it up when he was 13 years old. A new sport is hard, but he grew to love the game and joined his nearby club, DJK Würzburg. Whether he knew it or not, his life was absolutely going to be changed thanks to him. This is Holger Geswinder, a former star of the German national basketball team. The man who would unlock the crazy potential of the German Wunderkind. Holger was able to transform DIRK into a 16-year-old kid who was just tall to an absolute scoring machine that would revolutionize the NBA. DIRK's ability to shoot lights out as a 7-footer was freakish at the time. Holger studied mathematics and physics in college, and thanks to his background, he was able to calculate the optimal arc and release point for DIRK NOWITZKI's shot. He made sure DIRK's upper body motion was consistent every single time by making him shoot from one leg, from a squat position, from a lunge position, and after pirouettes. He would push DIRK to play instruments with his fingers to help finger rhythm, and send him to waltz and fencing classes to improve his footwork. We have seen many greats in sports who have had a background in other sports, but this was just crazy. His methods were bizarre, but he knew he would have to do something crazy to get the best out of DIRK. And it completely paid off. In 1998, Charles Barkley led a group of players, including Scottie Pippen, through Europe as a part of the Nike Hoop Heroes Tour. With his unique ability, DIRK absolutely dominated the entire game and dropped 50 points.
Michael, Scotty, a bunch of guys, like NBA players. There was like 18. This is when Scotty was quote unquote the best defender in the world. So DIRK is kicking our ass. He's got like 25 at halftime. And me and Michael like, Scotty, you got to pick it up a little bit. He's, man, I'm going to lock him down in the second half. I'm going to lock him down in the second half. DIRK finished with like 52.
At only 18, he was giving one of the best defenders in the world bucket after bucket. As a result, DIRK was chosen to play in the World Select team at the Nike Hoop Summit in San Antonio. There were some future NBA players in that game, Rashard Lewis and Al Harrington to name a couple. But it did not matter as he was once again dominant, dropping 33 points and 14 rebounds. He was an absolute stud. But the biggest thing holding him back wasn't even his own game. Historically, German players rarely pan out, and they would turn out to be duds. On top of that, DIRK's lack of athleticism was worrying to some GMs. But once again, the NBA made the fatal flaw of putting too much stock into a player's measurements and not what they see on film. As a result, he slipped to the number 9 spot and was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. It seems like the Mavericks have made it a habit of making draft day trades that change the entire future of the organization. Before the Luka trade, they traded for DIRK NOWITZKI and the 19th overall pick by giving up the 6th overall pick, who was Robert Taylor. They would eventually trade the 19th overall pick in Pat Garrity for some guy named Steve Nash. And from there, the legacy was born. DIRK NOWITZKI's rookie year was one to forget. He was lackluster, as he averaged 8 points and 3 rebounds a game in 20 minutes of playing time. He was not shooting the ball particularly well, and he lacked the consistency many desired from a power forward in that era. But everything changed on the night of the 16th, in April 1999. where he dropped a career-high 29 points against the Phoenix Suns. From that point on, he was able to string a couple of good games down the stretch of his rookie year, and that led to his second year. His second year in the league was night and day different from his rookie year. He averaged nearly 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists while shooting at a ridiculous 46% from the field and 38% from 3, which was unheard of from a 7-footer. On top of those great statistics, he was able to turn the franchise around from a lottery-driven team to a playoff team. In his third season, he led the Mavericks to their first playoff berth in a decade. Although young, the Dallas Mavericks were able to steal a series before bowing out of the playoffs. Throughout the next few seasons, the combination of Steve Nash, DIRK NOWITZKI, and Michael Finley formed one of the most potent offenses in the NBA, and it was a spectacle to watch. However, being an offense-dependent team had its issues in the playoffs, and the Mavs could not find a way to advance to the next stage, the Western Conference Finals. However, all that changed in the 02-03 season. With DIRK and Nash as all-stars, they were in one of their best years together and were considered contenders to push for the championship. After an impressive 60-win season which tied the Spurs for the top of the league, it seemed inevitable that the two Texas powerhouses would face each other. While the Spurs rolled through their matchups, the Mavericks tumbled and hiccuped their way through the playoffs. It looked good at first. The Mavericks jumped to a 3-0 lead against the Blazers. But one game at a time, the Blazers were able to claw back and tie the series up. With the pressure of being the first team to choke a 3-0 lead, DIRK dropped 31 points and 11 rebounds in Game 7 to lead them to the next round and avoid complete humiliation. Unlike the first series, the next one against the Kings was a back-and-forth dogfight. The Mavs' Big Four, including Nick Van Exel, was firing on all cylinders by averaging a combined 85 points per game in the series, preventing Peja Stojakovic from pulling off the upset. Stojakovic's heroic efforts were squashed by another virtuoso Game 7 where DIRK dropped 30 points and 19 rebounds. It seemed inevitable, but the two best forwards at the time were going head-to-head for a series everyone would remember. The Spurs versus the Mavs, Tim Duncan versus DIRK NOWITZKI, American versus German. It was pure box office. After a ridiculous Game 1, where DIRK NOWITZKI dropped 38 points, 15 rebounds, and Tim Duncan dropped 40 points and 15 rebounds, it was looking like everything everyone hoped for, but it did not last long. After Game 3, DIRK NOWITZKI was held out for the rest of the series due to a knee injury. The injury gods are cruel, and this exemplified their cruelty. Who knows what would have happened if DIRK was healthy, but he wasn't, and the Spurs took care of business to nab their second chip in the Duncan era. If anything, the fans were the ones who lost the most, as one of the best historical matchups was taken away in front of their eyes. It was still a hell of a run for the young Maverick team, and they would contend together for the foreseeable future, or so they thought. In the next playoff run, the Kings were able to exact their revenge and knocked out the Mavs in the first round despite stellar play from DIRK NOWITZKI. After that, the core slowly started to come apart. In the 2004 offseason, the Suns were able to outbid the Mavs in the Steve Nash sweepstakes. As a result, DIRK lost his closest teammate and his best friend, and a player that was just about to win his first ever MVP. The fans felt the pain of that loss in the very next playoff run, where the Mavs and the Suns were set to face off against each other in the Western Conference semifinals. DIRK was great in the series, but Steve Nash was an absolute monster averaging 30 points, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds, while shooting 55% from the field, 42% from 3, and 97% from the line in that series. He was out there proving that the Mavs should have ponied up, and everyone knew it. However, he did not have the last laugh. In the very next playoffs, the Mavericks and the Suns were able to meet up in the Western Conference Finals, with the shot of Dirk and Nash having the chance of getting to their first ever finals. The stakes were high. It seemed like destiny that these two would play against each other, but this time it was Nash who was great, and Dirk was the absolute monster, averaging 28 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, while shooting 46% from the field, 50% from 3, and 90% from the line. He was everything Dallas needed and more. Unfortunately, their run ended there, as they ran into the buzzsaw who was Dwayne Wade. That loss in the 06 finals definitely hurt, but that pain allowed Dirk to take his game to the next level. The very next season, he not only won the prestigious MVP award, which many desire and only few win, but he also joined the rare 50-40-90 club, where you shoot 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. There are only 9 players in the history of the NBA that have been able to be a part of this club. It is so exclusive that the likes of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James could never be a part of it. As shown here, the 8 of the 9 players in the club are current or future Hall of Famers and were absolutely lethal scorers during their prime. Dirk was always an amazing shooter and scorer since his breakout season in 2000, but in 06, he was a completely different animal. He was able to win the 3-point contest during the All-Star break. This accomplishment isn't one that many hold in high regard, but the fact that a 7-footer was able to win this competition and declare himself as not only the best shooting big man, but the best shooter in the entire league was historic. His shooting was comparable to guards and even better than some. It was truly something we never saw in NBA history. It is a shame that his stellar performances from his MVP season ended in such an embarrassing fashion. His MVP season led the Mavericks to the #1 seed in the Western Conference. They were lined up to play against the Golden State Warriors, who were led by Mavericks ex-head coach Don Nelson. The Warriors pulled off the improbable and upset the Mavs in 6. All of a sudden, the MVP trophy felt really empty to Dirk. From his MVP season to the 2010 season, Dirk's stellar play never led to any playoff success, as they were bounced in the first round 3 times in the next 4 years. However, during those years, they were building a team that would once again contend for the title. They were able to add Jason Kidd before the 2008 trade deadline and hired Rick Carlisle as the new head coach. They were great additions, but at the time, it was just not enough for a championship. Dirk met a crossroads. The same year that LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade were free agents, Dirk was also testing free agency. He had interest from several contenders, including the Lakers. While LeBron and Bosh left for greener pastures in Miami, Dirk went old school and stayed with the Mavs. Loyalty is one of the hardest qualities to find in a player, but it is truly beautiful when one of those players is part of your franchise's history. With the addition of Chandler in the offseason, the Mavs were able to put the best team around Dirk since his days with Nash. After a rocky start against the Blazers in the first round, they were able to steamroll the Kobe-led defending champions and the young Oklahoma City Thunder. The final obstacle was the same team, the same opponent from his last trip to the finals, the Miami Heat, except this time, Wade brought LeBron and Bosh to the fight. Many thought it was impossible for Dirk to beat them. The Miami Heat were heavy betting favorites. Almost all three players were in their prime, but so was Dirk Nowitzki. He was absolutely phenomenal in the series, averaging 26 points and 10 rebounds. His biggest moment came in Game 2. It was a critical game that the Mavs had to win so they could steal one of Miami's home games.
7 to shoot. Nowitzki drives, goes underneath, lefty layup, banks it in with 3.6 remaining.
His game winner put the Mavericks in the ideal position going back to Dallas for a 3-game slate. But more importantly, they knew they could win. After that, it was evident that Dirk was just the best player on the floor. He continued to be his consistent self, but he turned it up when it mattered the most. In Game 6, knowing that he could not waste this opportunity to close the Heat team, he went berserk in the second half of that game, dropping 18 points. He hit shot after shot to crush the hopes of the Heat to win a championship. It was beautiful. He no longer could be classified with the likes of Stockton, Malone, or Barkley. Now he entered the leagues of Duncan, Olajuwon, and Shaq. Throughout his career, he joined the 50-40-90 club. He won the MVP trophy. He won the 3-point contest trophy. He is 6th on the all-time scoring list, just behind Michael Jordan. But he finally attained the one trophy he was chasing his entire career, with a team and fans that stuck with him through thick and thin. And with adding that trophy, his legacy was sealed.